Um, Welcome to the Carter School's Peace Week, and welcome to Faces of Resilience, Building Peace in Carceral Spaces. And we're really pleased that you chose to spend time with us today and learn about this amazing project. And today our presenters will be Dr. Patricia Maulden, Associate Professor of Conflict Resolution at Mason's Carter School, and the Director of the Dialogue and Difference Project, and William Perthes, the Bernard C. Watson Director of Adult Education at the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia, and Cody Stoltranger from Mural Arts in Philadelphia. Welcome, Cody. And this is an exciting evening, an exciting event. So thank you for joining us. I'm Michael Smith at Into Mason. I'll be your moderator, and I'm also the link between the Carter School and the Barnes Foundation. I co-teach Conflict 325 Dialogue and Difference with Leila Peterson, and I have worked closely with Dr. Maulden for 15 years, Patricia, and I have tremendous respect for her work about youth violence in carceral spaces. But I'm also a student of Bill Perthes at the Barnes Foundation, where I will be earning my Barnes DiMaggio certificate in May. And I have tremendous respect for the work of Bill and the Barnes Foundation. So thank you, Bill. And this past August, I took a course with Bill where he introduced us to this project of Faces of Resilience and showed us some of the images of these amazing artists, and it blew me away. So I asked Bill if he would be interested in collaborating with us on this workshop to share this work with all the Mason community and beyond. And we're grateful that he said yes, and that he and Dr. Maulden are here, and Cody and all of you. So thank you so much. So today we are going to be putting some questions in the chat for inviting you to ponder these during the program, and to write your responses in the chat so that we can then harvest them and consider them. So here are the questions that we'll put in there. Number one, what is the idea of Faces of Resilience raised in you? Can you think of next steps that might be useful? And number two, what are other ways that art can support equity in social justice issues? So as ideas come to you, please share them with us and we will look at them. All right, and at the end of the program today, we have two exciting announcements about continuation of this work that we are doing together with the Barnes Foundation, and we will provide a link for you to put yourself on a mailing list. So thank you so much. We're going to ask our presenters to share their work, but before that, we invite Mr. Leo Hilton to lead us in a somatic grounding. Leo.
Thank you, Michael. So, first off, welcome, and thank you to everyone who has chosen to step into this space and engage on this much needed topic, and to hear these much needed voices in these spaces that are too often silenced. So an acknowledgement that life is happening all over the place. We just stepped out of it and into this space, and we're going to jump right back into it when we step out of here. I think it's important to really get grounded and become present fully here. And I know that that is really difficult in this world where there are all of these pressures on our time and our attention in any given moment. So for this, whether you're standing or sitting, let's get grounded, become still where we are. And if you feel comfortable doing so, close your eyes. If not, that's okay. Just let the corners relax. Lower your gaze a little bit. Soften so that your eyes can be relaxed and your body can come to rest. And as we bring our attention gradually to our breath, Let all of the stresses, all of the concerns, all of the anxieties, the worries that might be coming up for you, all of the projects that might be waiting for you, let them be where they are. And let's be present here together. Don't worry about controlling your breath. Just notice how it flows through your body. And as you do, let's bring our attention to wherever our contact points are with the earth, be it through our feet, or if we're sitting, then through our back, the back of our legs. And with each exhalation, feel yourself sink into where you are, feeling one with the ground beneath your feet, the ground beneath your body. Even if you're on the second, third, fourth floor, that's okay, because eventually whatever you are touching reaches back to the earth. So whether you feel your breath in your chest or in your belly, just see if you can get it just a little bit deeper on this next inhale, just all the way in. Breathing in some peace and strength and joy, and breathing out any anxiety, any concern, any worry. Breathing in peace and out worry. If you notice any tension in your body, breathe into that. Breathe in that peace into that place and that relaxation. And breathe out that tension. Let's come to a place of stillness. The human experience finds many ways to express a voice. Some through the spoken or the written word, some through art and sculpture. And so from this place of stillness and relaxation, may we be open to hearing those voices in each of these media. And as you're ready, start moving your toes, your hands, your shoulders, and open your eyes if you allowed yourselves to close them. And let's see where we go from here.
Thank you, Leah. So now we will hear from Dr. Patricia Maulden.
Honor to have artists and all of you here to consider the role of art in and of itself, but also to consider the role of art as a gateway outside of the carceral spaces, a door that's opened in our minds and in our hearts, and sometimes in our hands as we engage with materials, and have the ability to create as we wish to create, even if it is only in our mind, if we don't have access to those things, and how difficult that is designed against it. And so I'm so honored that Bill Perthes and Cody is here, and they're going to talk to us about what is possible, what has happened, and what we might think of as happening later. We'll talk a bit towards the end about how we're going to, from the Carceral Society section of the Transitioning Justice Peace Lab, continue with this work on George Mason campus and hopefully elsewhere. So, Bill and Cody, welcome.
Thank you, Patricia. Now we
Thank you. So I'm sharing my screen. Michael, can you see that?
Yes.
Great. So first of all, I want to add my voice to the thank yous for joining us, for taking some time to think about this critical issue, and to consider the way in which art and restorative justice may interact through a very concrete example, an exhibition called Faces of Resilience. There we go. So what was Faces of Resilience? Prior to talking with Patricia and Michael, I would have said what was, but now, as you'll hear later, I will say what is, because it continues to have a vibrant life and future. So Faces of Resilience was a special exhibition of original artwork created by emerging artists from Mural Arts Philadelphia's Guild program. And I'll say more about each of the actors in this in a moment, as well as seasoned artists from SCI Phoenix, SCI standing for State Correctional Institute. The exhibition was held in the galleries of the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia last summer from the 8th of July through the 22nd of August. So who are these players? Mural Arts Guild. So the Guild, first of all, Mural Arts is an art and education organization here in the city of Philadelphia that engages arts with the community, and a large part of their mission is geared towards restorative justice. In addition to that, they create as many as 100 public murals each year throughout the city and the surrounding areas. And in the arena of restorative justice, one of the things that they sponsor is this organization called the Guild. The Guild is a paid apprenticeship program that gives justice-impacted young people the opportunity to develop marketable skills and to reconnect with their community. And part of that is both in art making, helping, for instance, to create some of the public murals that Mural Arts creates throughout the city, but also art making of their own. And SCI Phoenix is the Southeast Pennsylvania's male maximum security prison. The inmates at SCI Phoenix are serving no less than a 7-year sentence, and many of the artists in the exhibition are serving life sentences. Faces of Resilience is a collaborative effort between the Barnes Foundation, Mural Arts, and Second State Press. Second State Press is here in Philadelphia. It's a communal printmaking studio whose mission is to foster the development of ideas and innovation in printmaking by providing the community with a professional, affordable, and supportive workspace. And it was really through the collaboration of our instructor with Second State that the Guild was able to create their artwork. And I'll say that the image you're looking at is the main instructor of this program, standing in the center, my colleague Christine Stoughton, along with members of the Guild in the galleries of the Barnes Foundation. So just a bit of a background as to this partnership, particularly between the Barnes and Mural Arts. The collaboration began in 2018, and Faces of Resilience is the third special exhibition that has resulted from this collaboration. Mural Arts works in SCI Phoenix and its predecessor, SCI Greaterford, and has worked there for more than 20 years rather. The exhibition, Faces of Resilience, was organized around the theme, this year was organized around the theme of the portrait in all of its iterations, both literal as well as symbolic. So my colleague here, Christine Stoughton, we see her at work with the Guild, working in Second State Press. And it was with her guidance that the Guild members, most of whom didn't consider themselves artists to begin with, and most all of whom had never been in a print studio, and only a handful of them had ever been in an art gallery, art collection rather, like the Barnes Foundation. But through Christine's guidance, over 6 two-hour sessions, they learned printmaking techniques and began to create and then work and rework in a progressive process. Christine's very mindful of having them start something and then the next week return to it with new ideas, and to continue that process. And we'll see the results of that in a moment. And by doing so, by adding and adjusting their work, they build works that have layers of both complexity as well as meaning. And then an additional part of that, the Guild visited the Barnes Foundation for several visits in which this theme of the portrait was considered. So looking at examples in our collection, and asking questions like, what makes a picture a portrait? Or is any picture of a person a portrait? And if not, why not? What's the difference? Along with my colleague, Michael Williamson, they also explored the breadth of our collection, including our early collection of African sculpture. And here we see him on the mezzanine, and behind one of the figures is a Benin bronze. Part of the motivation for this was to consider how artists oftentimes are referencing the figure, but not with the intention of copying the human form. And these sessions in the collection were then intended to inform the printmaking sessions at Second State Press. And just in case anybody's not familiar with the Barnes Foundation, just a word about who we are. We, in 2022, celebrated the centenary of our founding, and our mission is art and education. We were founded as an educational institution, but we're perhaps more well known for our collection, which includes world traditions from Asia and Africa and South America and so forth, but is most well known for our collection of French post-impressionist paintings, including the largest single collection of works by Pierre-Auguste Renoir and Paul Cézanne. We also include works by Henri Matisse and Pablo Picasso and so forth. So at the same time that the Guild was working with Christine and having visits to the Barnes Foundation, artists at SCI Phoenix, we see an aerial view of the facility here, were working to create their own original artwork around the same theme. One difference between these two groups is that where the Guild were more or less sort of beginning their journey as artists, those at SCI Phoenix are both seasoned and skilled artists who create art year-round, both their own original work as well as helping to create many of the public murals that Mural Arts installs around the city. I think many people in the city would be surprised to know that the murals that they see on the side of buildings, many of them monumental in scale, are not actually painted on the building themselves, but are painted on squares of parachute cloth that are then adhered to the wall. And so it's that process that allows the artists at Phoenix to participate in creating portions of the public murals that we see and enjoy, many of which they have painted the entire thing. And these shots give you a sense of both what the exterior of the facility looks like as well as what it looks like inside. Phoenix is a relatively new facility taking over for SCI Greaterford, which is actually a sort of a historic building because it took over from Eastern State Penitentiary here in the city, which stretches back all the way into the 19th century. So the culmination of this exhibition, or of this effort, was this special exhibition of works that we called Faces of Resilience, and we see it here installed in our first floor gallery classroom, and we'll see a bit of what that means. So this is the one side of the room, and here is the other side. And in a minute, we're going to look at a few of these works in greater detail. So part of what, actually, let me go here. So this photograph will be a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with our gallery, but I wanted to give you a sense of where this space is located. So the classroom space in which this exhibition is hung is between two of the galleries of our permanent collection. So I'm showing you a doorway view from Gallery 9, and beyond this is the classroom space where the exhibition was, and then beyond that is another gallery of the permanent collection. And here, as you look to the left, to the paintings on the wall, we see examples by Renoir and Cézanne and Seurat, as well as this small one at the very corner of the room that's by Honoré Daumier. And here's sort of a wider view, a gallery down. And this is not just incidental to the experience of the viewer to this special exhibition, because part of what gives me particular enjoyment is the fact that the majority of the viewers who encounter this exhibition likely do so unexpectedly. That is, they've come to see a collection of post-impressionist and post-impressionist and modern paintings. And in the course of their visit, they are confronted by this exhibition that the impact of which, or the purpose of which, is to call into question the very nature of things like mass incarceration and the judicial state. So most visitors encounter it completely unexpectedly. And my hope is that having experienced this, that they take away a little bit of that, and perhaps it prompts them to think about topics that they very likely didn't intend to think about, and probably many of whom have never thought about really very carefully at all. So I've selected a couple pieces from the exhibition. I should say that in total, the exhibition included 30 works. I've selected out for the sort of first round 4 pieces that I'd like to have us look at a little closely, and I'll say a little bit about each of the work, but also give you an opportunity to think about them. But as we sort of prepare to look at these works, a few sort of contextual points about this. One is that it's my practice for certain, and pretty much everybody that works in this program, to be very sensitive to the privacy of the artists. So given the nature of this theme, that is of portraiture, we chose the theme because it is malleable to the interests and intentions of a variety of approaches, but we didn't want to prescribe what the artists did, and in a similar way, we also didn't want to pry as to what motivated them to create the images that they did. So any of the information for any of these, but in particular for the Guild, is information that they volunteered themselves. It wasn't something that we asked them to provide, but rather that they provided willingly. And as we do so, I'm going to speak to the work from the Guild artists, and then I've asked my friend Cody to talk about the work from SCI Phoenix. So this first image is actually the image that we chose to use as the sort of emblematic or the iconic picture for the exhibition. It's the work that we used on our website, as well as in some promotional information, because of its particularly impactful visual content. So this work was actually created. Rashida is actually one of the supervisors for the Guild. So she's an administrator with Mural Arts. She helps oversee the female Guild members, but she was joining the Guild at Second State as they were creating the work, and began to participate herself and really took to it. And so here we see Rashida herself standing in front of a projected image of a close friend of hers who she lost to gun violence. And this theme was not one that we promoted or even talked about, but it was one that resonated with several of the artists. It's something that came up in their work. And the composition of this is, I think, particularly striking, that we see Rashida here dressed in black, in profile, looking towards a projected image of her friend as he looks off into the distance, and her cast shadow almost joins him in that image. And then the distressed nature of the image to some degree challenges a clear reading of the image. So we sort of have to look through some of the surface markings to see the image beneath that. And then those superimposed images, in particular, the stenciled 3 in the bottom, creates a even more complex understanding of the spatial relationship of the image. That is, that the stenciled 3 really declares the frontality of the picture plane, so that we're very aware of the surface of the print itself. And then the projected image, as it's on an angle, suggests receding space into the picture. So we have these sort of multi-layered suggestions of the space of the image. And then in addition to that, the layering of the image, of the picture within a picture within a picture, in itself creates a more complex layering of visual depth, so that each layer seems to be sort of one step removed from the one before it, and sort of anticipating the next one beyond that. And we'll have time if anybody wants to comment on these or ask questions, to return to them after we've gone through these 4. As I said, the theme of the portraiture was one that we encouraged the artists to think about in a very creative ways. And so Johnny Hardrick thought of it not so literally, but more symbolically. And he really came to it with this idea of thinking outside the box. You know, it's a kind of cliche that we say, think outside the box, but for him, it really resonated as both a metaphor for an artist addressing a theme that is, you know, has a historical or a history to it, the idea of portraiture, but also trying to think of a new sort of take on it. And so really grasping that idea, or playing with that idea of thinking outside the box. So his image not only reminds us of that sort of familiar phrase, but it's also a visual metaphor of the interest of breaking outside for the artist. And I think in many ways that was what motivated him. He was thinking about, and this is one of the things that unites the guild members, is that although many of them have been adjudicated in one way or another, they're individuals that are determined to change the path of their lives, and sort of, you know, put themselves on a more productive route. And Johnny's work very much reflects that he himself is thinking, how can I sort of get out of that rut and try elevate myself to something new? And this is, for Johnny, this was sort of one iteration of this theme. He did several works in which he used the metaphor of the ladder as a way of symbolically suggesting climbing out of sort of one space, maybe one place that's confining, and leading to some place that might be transformative, suggestive of growth or advancement, or the ambition of trying to reach new goals. And although this work was actually larger than the suggested format, because we have limited space, we asked the artists to try to work within a prescribed dimensions, and his work was a little larger than that. But the sort of power of the economy of his image prompted us to want to include it regardless of that. And now I'll turn it over to Cody to talk about two works from artists from SCI Phoenix.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. So I'm Cody. I guess brief introduction. I am a formerly incarcerated artist. I spent 20 years in Pennsylvania jails and prisons from 2001 until 2021. In 2013, I joined Mural Arts at Greaterford, joined that program, and continued on with that through the move to Phoenix in 2018. So I finished out my sentence at Phoenix, was paroled in December of 2021. And now I'm working with Mural Arts out here in Philadelphia, in the real world. And at the same time, not forgetting everything that I went through and the guys that I went through that with. And so I guess we'll just jump right into it. Keith, so this is a piece by Keith Andrews. He actually goes by Butu. I think he prefers to be called that. I'm not sure exactly what that means to him, but yeah, so this is Butu here. This is a piece called Reflection, and produced in 2022, created in 2022 for the Faces of Resilience project. As it says there, it's acrylic on parachute cloth, which Bill talked about, you know, as being the substrate for many of the murals that are here in the city. And I think it's best to just say it in Keith's words, in Butu's words. He wrote up a little something about this piece. So if that's okay, I'll just read that. The name of my piece is Reflection. I really am hoping to show a visual of and start a conversation on life without parole, also known as death by incarceration. I have watched people who have spent 20, 30, 40 years in prison wither away without a chance of parole and redemption. I live with the possibility of being one of them. Reflection is a self-portrait of myself as I currently look, and set against the backdrop of a photo array of my first mugshot of me at 21 as I entered the Department of Corrections. I've been incarcerated since the age of 18. I am now 43 years of age on a life sentence without the possibility of parole. I have never been a big speaker, but art has been a voice for me and an outlet. I know how art can mend hearts, inspire, motivate, educate, build bridges and bonds, and break chains. There are no limits when it comes to art. So that's Reflection in the words of Keith Andrews, in his own words. And I can certainly relate to that. That one of the things that is great about art, especially on the inside, is that it transcends the space that you're in. You know, it gets you out. It takes your presence out into the larger world, which is yeah, it's invaluable when you're in a space like that, when you're facing what Keith's facing right now. And I love his work. I've seen him grow as an artist over the years. He's a fabulous artist. He's made a lot of really fine works over the years, and I think Bill's probably seen a lot of them. He can corroborate that. Yeah, Keith's grown a lot, and I really hope that he gets his chance soon to continue doing that in the real world, because on top of being an exceptional artist, he's a pretty good dude. At least in my few years of interacting with him, I consider him a friend. And yeah, let's get him out here. Let's get him making art in the real world. So next up, Thomas Schilk. Yeah. So here we go. So another friend of mine, Thomas Schilk. He's was born and raised in Kensington section of Philadelphia. He's in his 60s now, and been in prison, I believe, 38 or 39 years on a life sentence. And yeah, I stay in regular contact with Tom. He calls me pretty much every other night. We talk about art and how life's going for me, and everything else. And this 23 or Me, this is the piece that Thomas Schilk created for the Faces of Resilience project. And I will read what he wrote about it. Okay, so in the words of Tom, the pandemic hit hard in SCI Phoenix. We were subjected to punishing quarantine/lockdowns, sometimes locked in a bathroom-sized cell for days at a time. Eventually, we were allowed out for 5 minutes at first, then 15, then 45, and so on. We were placed in cohorts that let me out of the cell with 32 other men. Before it was over, my cohort had 8 men hospitalized, 4 on ventilators, and 2 dead. I had COVID twice myself, as did virtually every other person in my cohort. According to the DOC, the official death count from COVID at SCI Phoenix is 23. Most of us believe it was more. So, yeah, it's powerful, right? I mean, each of these figures that Tom placed in this piece represents a death, a human life that was an incarcerated human life, a death from COVID, while at SCI Phoenix. And yeah, I'm one of those that believes it was many more as well. And I knew some guys who died in there. Wow. I was talking with Tom about this piece the other night, and I think an interpretation that hadn't occurred to him, which really surprised me, was that so the 23 or more could also be thought of in terms of time, in hours of the day, because there were stretches there for years since COVID began, 2020, March of 2020. So for about 2 years from then on, it was there were a lot of months at a time where we would be stuck in those cells for 23 or more hours per day. So I was really surprised that hadn't occurred to him, because Tom's pretty sharp. But just a coincidence, I guess, strange coincidence that works out. But yeah, Tom, another fabulous artist. I mean, had just produced countless really, really impactful, meaningful works over the years. I really admire his work, because he has a knack for imbuing all of his art with meaning. Like, every piece that he makes has a lot of meaning, and I think in most cases it's pretty clear, like what he's getting at with the work. And again, in his words, I think he would say, well, he always does say that he considers his works polemics, where he is arguing against something, usually for some kind of social injustice in the world. And yeah, he does what he can, to make a little noise about it. And he does that through art, beautifully, powerfully. Thomas Schilk, 23 or more. And so how do we want to handle this next? What does this move to now, Bill?
So I think now, if it's okay with Patricia and Michael, we maybe take a little time to open the floor and see if there's anybody that has any questions or comments, either about the program, about the artwork. We do have other pieces that we can look at if folks would like to, but Cody and I are both happy to discuss anything.
Okay, Bill, Carlos Walker raised his hand. And I know that Leo had some questions about materials. Carlos, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can. So just to start off, I love their work, especially I don't know what the word Cody just used for Tom's work, what he actually do. So I did 13 years in prison myself, and I'm an artist. And I resonate with the work that they do. One, fighting social issues, social injustice issues, helping out or getting thoughts out. And I understand what they went through and how they're using art to try to portray what life was from the inside. And Cody, I heard how much time you've done. I'm sorry that you've done it, but I am grateful that you have found who you are through this situation, because I once too was in there and I learned to use my art as an outlet. So I just want to basically it wasn't really a question, but to give congratulations for what they have done with their art.
I will relay that.
Yeah. And if
So Carlos, I think you articulate in part some of the motivation behind these exhibitions. So as I said, this is the third, but certainly not the last, is that the artwork that these artists create are powerful in a way that connect with so many people, those that where the experience resonates personally, but also for those for whom it doesn't, where it's a foreign it's a foreign experience, and yet it touches them in a human way that hopefully makes that connection between people, particularly the viewers who might think that they're so different from the people that are incarcerated, and we all know that that's absolutely not the case. Yeah.
Mel Hardy was the one who introduced me or asked me to come onto this platform as well, and he has been an inspiration to me. He's seen some of my artwork and gave me the opportunity to actually have a conversation. And through the art that I'm seeing, especially with Thomas' work, because Thomas actually, I came from an FCI. I left right before COVID hit. I left in 2019. And seeing his artwork, like you said, most people can't fathom it out here, what it's like to be there. And to be able to understand that through art and through just building with people, you learn to build a community. It's a world inside of a world. And I learned from just being there, things that I've seen. We observe the world out here while people can't observe it from out here and there. So like through his art, through Thomas's artwork, I see, even though I was gone when COVID hit, I heard some of my friends tell me about the deaths that was happening. And we're out here and we seen death out here, but in there, they seen it on a different scale because it's so compact that you have to look at it from a whole different point of view. Everybody is literally dying around you. Out here, people were dying, but how close was it compared to people right there that you're living next to? And it's mind blowing. So I do thank you for the time.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, Carlos. Bill, I'm wondering if we have about 30 minutes left, would you want you and Cody want to share those other images, and we'll see what other comments and questions people may have.
Yeah, happy to. So I selected four others rather, that sort of augment those first four. And again, the order is similar. The first two are by Guild artists, and the second two are by Phoenix artists. So this is by Kyle Williams, and I mentioned with Rashida's work that that the loss of a loved one was a theme that resonated with several of the artists and several of the works. Another theme that registered with both groups, as we'll see, is the role of a parent. And for Kyle, that was front and center when he began thinking about the work that he would create. So as you see, his work is called The Original Superhero. And so he began, several of the Guild artists started with an image of themselves, a photograph, a self-portrait of themselves. And then for Kyle, began to superimpose that with text, and text very much inspired by graffiti. And it's in the text really where he's foregrounding his intentions. So as we see the title in the work, the original superhero in the left, and then running down the right, fatherhood is the best hood. And then as a father, our job is mandatory actions of love. It's a lifestyle. And then in the background, we see his modification of the Simpsons cartoon into his family. So surrounding himself with his children in the style of that cartoon. And then Cody.
Yes, this piece here is by Al Collantes, and he goes by Lito, Al Lito. This is titled A Better Me. Again, it's acrylic on parachute cloth. And he wrote a little something about this. So let's just hear it in his words. A face of resilience to me is my daughter, Ebony Collantes. She had the weight of a broken world in front of her. She had every excuse not to succeed in this world. However, she pushed forward and worked hard to make herself successful in this broken world. I created through my harmful mistakes, erred thinking, and erratic actions. What I wanted for myself only came true through my daughter's resilience. So obviously he put a spin on it. He didn't look at himself. He could have used his own portrait. He could have used anyone's portrait. He chose to use Ebony, to speak of her resilience in the face of everything that he put her through as a father who ended up in prison. And Al, another life sentence prisoner, he's sentenced to life without parole in Pennsylvania here. And wow. Yeah, it's it's a toll on the families, and it takes a toll on the families. This incarceration, his incarceration, it's not just he who's locked up, and in some ways his family, his daughter, and it's a massive ripple effect, far-reaching. The effects of when we incarcerate someone, especially when we as society say that we're going to incarcerate someone for the rest of their natural life. And, resilient. Yeah, any questions? I mean, I don't know if anyone has any questions, hang on to them about these pieces. If anyone wants to circle back to any of the pieces we looked at before, feel free, time permitting, right?
Cody, I think you really put your finger on part of the power of this piece, in that it draws attention to the fact that mass incarceration has ripple effects. It's not just the person incarcerated, but it's their family, it's their community, and it has a debilitating it can have a debilitating generational impact. And I think Al is very aware of that.
Bill,
Yeah, Patricia, please.
sorry, there was a question in the chat directed at me. I don't know the answer. Of course, now I'm going to, the person can't use their mic, but wanted to know if you all considered making prints of these art pieces and selling them as a way for the artists to earn some income, or if that's possible.
So Cody has a bit of an entrepreneurial role in this, particularly with Tom. So I'll let him address that.
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's certainly possible. Now there are some issues with that, where the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections will say one of their something in their policy says that you as an incarcerated person in their care are not permitted to run a business. And it's sort of vague. I mean, and I feel like they rarely enforce it, but it is technically you're not allowed to do that. I mean, it does happen, and it would certainly be possible. I guess maybe like exceptions can be made, but yeah,
Okay.
the guys definitely could use some income. They earn money, and whether they're washing dishes or making art, they're not really making enough money to make an impact in the larger world. And it's a good suggestion. I like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Cody.
I have another question from Susan asking, can you address the way that restorative justice practices addresses the art that is produced?
How could you repeat that real quickly?
Yeah, could you comment on the role that restorative justice practices plays in the development of the art that is produced?
Okay. Well, yeah, I think so much of this art we can see healing in here. I mean, this piece in particular, right? This is a great example of a better me. I mean, the title of it is A Better Me. It's about trying to it's a step toward restoring the relationship with his daughter. It reflects that he has grown as a person. I think art can run with restorative justice in all these different ways. And I feel like most of the art that I see is has pieces of that in there. Maybe Bill could say a little something about that as well.
Well, I'll just amplify what you said, particularly or specifically with regards to this piece and Al, is that so Al wrote more than what we've read here with regards to this piece, and he's very articulate in how he yearns to, both through his art but also through his actions, try to amend for the, as he says, his own shortcomings that ended up landing him in jail and creating this, this gap between him and his daughter. And so art is a way both of trying to lift her up, recognizing his admiration for her ability to overcome, but also a way of voicing his own intentions. And that's a theme that so many of these exhibitions have pursued, is that art can be a means for people who are otherwise silent in society to have a voice.
Bill, Carlos asked a question, and Carlos, thank you for raising this because we can address this now. How can I get involved in this work? And what we ask you to do, Carlos, and all of you, is could you please send a private message to Patricia Maulden and give her your email address so that we can keep you updated on our upcoming work, and also pass that on to Bill and Cody.
Yeah, my email address is pmaulden, pmaulden@gmu.edu, just in case.
Great. And we do have two more pieces.
Oh, great. Okay.
That we can look at
Yeah.
just before we. So this is another work by a guild member, and there isn't actually a lot I can say about it because this is an artist who chose not to talk about his motivation behind it, but it does speak to the breadth of how this theme was adapted by artists, from examples that were very literal, so Boto's self-portrait, for instance, to a work like this, which leans much more on symbols. And just in the sort of few conversations where he was willing to talk about it. The symbols were not random; they were chosen for particular reasons, but unfortunately, symbols that remain personal to him. That said, the work itself is, has a visual impact through the interesting juxtaposition of not just colors but also textures. It's highly tactile in its qualities, so very evocative of different kinds of textures. And then we have one more from Phoenix, and I'll turn again to Cody.
Okay, so this piece is by Robert Rigler, another artist that I know very well. Spent a lot of years with Bob in mural arts and elsewhere at Greaterford. And so Bob, a few things about Bob. He's as he wrote, he's 71 now. He's been incarcerated a really, really long time. I think coming up on 50 years at this point. Life without parole, sentence of life without parole. He takes a lot of pride in his status as a veteran. He was in the Army when he was, I guess, 18. When he turned 18, he ended up going and serving his country. Takes a lot of pride in that to this day, and is active in the veterans organization there at Phoenix. And yeah, I think this piece definitely, incorporates that. Says something about that. This is called Camouflaged, and basically mixed media on parachute cloth. And Bob wrote a little something about this, so I'd like to read that. Just say it in his own words. So he says May 10th. I think this is May 10th of this year. Would that be May? No, May. We're not there yet. May 10th of 2022. He started 49 years in prison. His 49th year in prison. I was 23 at arrest, 71 now. I saw a painting done in different colors, like the face was camouflaged. I liked it, but I did my self-portrait in my own colors. When I did this, we were right at the end of COVID. I saw us as resilient. We adjusted and survived. We remained alive. In the wake of bad medical treatment and stuck in close quarters. I used a real COVID mask and painted in camouflage colors. I love art. Right now, it is 90% of my life. So Bob said a lot there. And I guess we're looking at the piece, we can see, so the camouflage piece at the bottom and the center in the foreground with vet and airborne, I think that is a mask. That's one of the masks that was issued by the DOC that we were required to wear. We were forced to wear those for a long time, about 2 years in there. Anytime we went out anywhere where we'd come into contact with anyone else, and yeah, this piece just says so much about Bob and about his his life, with the life that he's living today. He likes to bring in a lot of objects. He's really free with his art. I feel he's really free with the colors, with shapes. He'll use like found objects often, incorporate them into his art. And I've seen him grow in remarkable ways as an artist over the years. And yeah. I'm glad that everybody gets to see this, that we're out here able to share this with everyone, that everybody's able to feel this and experience this. And that's Robert Rigler, Camouflaged. Yeah.
Thanks, Cody. Questions, comments, observations from anyone?
I would say something now, Bill, that in light of reading all the wonderful comments and conversation, I feel like in less than an hour, we started to build a community here. And I would just say now that Patricia and Bill and I see today's event as the beginning of a conversation. and that we are planning for a Carceral Spaces conference in the fall at Mason and an exhibition of this art through Mason Exhibitions, collaboration with them. And Patricia, you want people to contact you at your email address or in the chat here? You prefer your email address?
I do, because
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So if you want to get involved, sorry, that's easier. Okay. Yeah, so if you want to be part of this continuing conversation and be updated on these ongoing events, please write to Patricia at her email and let her know that. And Bill, we've got about 15 more minutes.
Yeah, so I wanted to go back to this piece. There were several pieces in the exhibition that were particularly impactful, and this was one of them. So for several reasons. One, the Buddha really shows the level of his skill and his creativity to combine these images. But what I thought was particularly, see actually if I can go back to, yeah, you can't see it, but it's all the way at the extreme left. So it was an anchor work that we used, and you can see the two works to our right, or the two others that we looked at, Al's as well as Bob's. Oops. But one of the aspects of this work that was so had such a profound, I think, effect on viewers, and it's actually suggested by its title, which again has this deep resonance, and that is that when we as a viewer stand in front of it, it's almost as if we're looking in a mirror and we're seeing not only the artist, we're seeing not only Keith, but we're also potentially seeing ourselves. And if even a handful of visitors go away with having that experience, certainly one that I had, and several of the people that I spoke with about who had visited the exhibition had a similar sort of similar recall, that it first of all puts a human face on this challenge of mass incarceration and life without parole, but also not only puts a human face on it, but puts a face to a problem. That one of the biggest problems with the carceral state is that the people that suffer under it are largely invisible to the rest of society. And this exhibition, where artists present themselves and we're able to see them and recognize them and see in their eyes their humanity, again, I hope that they take away from that something of that connection. And then, needless to say, the way that resonates with the mugshots in the back that really show what his time being incarcerated has, sort of the toll that it's left on him, is profound as well. Cody, was there anything you wanted to add?
Just to reiterate that any questions that anyone has, I'm open to any questions. I don't know, is it appropriate to give my email? I mean, if anyone would like to ask me any questions about this work or any of the artists who were featured here that I know personally.
Sure, Cody, you want to put that in the chat?
You want it? All right, yeah. Yeah, I love talking about these works, these stories. I mean, it's just great to have this opportunity to do that, to try to amplify these voices, take the voices of these men out beyond the walls. It's yeah, it doesn't happen often enough, I don't think. We talk so much, and we have so many of this sort of meeting and these spaces where we're all out here free in this world, and talking about incarceration. And it's so many of these, it's not, their voices are not actually there, you know, they're not actually present in those spaces. And yeah, I feel like that's a problem. But we just do the best we can, and it's just I try to represent those people, those voices, the best I can when you know, whenever I'm given the opportunity to do so.
Cody, I think Anka, or you had your hand
Yeah.
up.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not at home, so I don't have my camera on. But I'm in a conflict like resolution class. I'm thinking of making it making it a master's degree. And I just really am interested in like just alternative, or I mean, that's not necessarily alternative, but just new ways of like facilitating, like, you know, these pathways towards peace between individuals. How do you think art can kind of fit into that? And this can be like obviously in like carceral spaces, but also in like other areas of conflict, say for instance, you know, like areas that have, you know, experienced like genocide, things like that. Like how can art serve, in your opinion? This is really anybody. Sorry, that's a bit of a lot.
No, I think it's an excellent question. And it actually goes to a kind of underlying question that sort of pervades projects like this. Is it's more sort of to the negative, is, you know, what good is art in something like a state like this? Like how can it possibly play any role? And my answer to that would be severalfold, but most importantly, that art often says things that we're unable to articulate through words, and maybe sometimes are not even fully aware of. You know, Cody's reading of 23 or more, not only in individuals but in hours. That's a meaning that maybe Tom didn't consciously think of, but it's something that resonates with the work, resonates with Cody. You know, art, so in other words, art has a way of visualizing ideas that we're often incapable of fully articulating verbally. And it has the power also to articulate complex ideas in nuanced ways. Even for, as we see this with the Guild, even people that don't consider themselves artists, when given the space, the opportunity, the materials, and a bit of guidance, find that they have things they want to say, and that art is a way of doing that.
I'd like to add also that just as an example of that, I know there was a project that Mural Arts conducted. It was I guess probably at least 15 years ago now. I believe it was called Healing Walls, and it brought together offenders and people who had suffered at the hands of offenders, people, many of whom had lost people to gun violence. And it brought these you know, these different, like, opposing sides together to workshop for a long time. Like they really got to know each other. They had a lot of conversations, a lot of difficult conversations about what they were experiencing, what they had experienced. And I think everyone who was a part of that project would say that it was transformative. You know, it was ultimately transformative. And yeah, it made them see, I think, probably see the other side in like more nuanced ways, you know, and also add to their understanding of their own side. So I think there are examples of it out there, and there's definitely, yeah, it definitely is useful. Art is definitely useful in those spaces.
So Bill and Cody and Patricia, we are almost at time. So I just want to just say we have one last, Carlos had raised his hand, so we'll have one last comment from Carlos. Then Patricia will be leading us in some closing remarks. And I want to thank all of you for coming. And again, this is the beginning of a conversation. We invite all of you to join us in this conversation. And thank you, all of you, and also all of you who shared in the chat, Eddie, Carlos, and all of you. So Carlos, you have a question?
Not really a question. Kind of to give an answer to what the question that the young lady just said, but to piggyback off what y'all just was stating. So the art that I create is built upon making people think. I believe in empathy. So what I do, I reverse the roles of people in certain places. Like I did white and black people. I took American history and reversed the roles. I'm doing a series now based off incarcerated people, judges, lawyers, Congress people. Because what I understand, based off what y'all was just saying, when you are put in the next person's shoes, you get to see their vision or understand them from a different side. And that's based off how we see our perspective. We are locked in, most people are locked in into their own existence. They do not see other people's side because of how they're up. Have time to run. Oh, because of their own stance. But when you actually get to see yourself in somebody else's shoes, what happens? Your mind shifts. You feel more empathy towards people. And that changes life. That changes not for just that person, but for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Patricia, you have some closing remarks for us? Patricia?
Okay, sorry, Mike.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right. First of all, thank you all for being here, being present and sitting with us through this. And thank you to the folks. Thank you, Cody. Thank you. Of course, now I'm going to space on your name, Bill. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Amanda, behind the scenes. Thank you, Leo, for the wonderful semantic grounding. So we'll close with this. And this is a bit of writing from Ai Weiwei, an artist activist. If we talk about human beings, we have rationality. But more than that, we have our emotions. We have our sensitivity, which is much larger than scientific research or rational conclusions. We know or we sense something actually we think we have. So art is about all those things which cannot be clearly defined and that are beyond our rationality. If we talk about human beings, about human society as a complete character, then art is absolutely necessary for us to call ourselves human or human beings. So we can just think about that. There's somebody has the hand up there. I'm not sure who that is.
Oh, yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea of loving each of our brothers and sisters as part of our family, no matter who they are, no matter where they are, is for me a fundamental grounding for the work that we do in carceral societies and in restorative justice and in everyday life. And I appreciate coming up. Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Cody, and hopefully we'll get you involved in the to be determined extravaganza where Michael and I are cooking up.
You're drafted, Cody and Bill.
Yes, oh good. So anyway, send questions if you have them, and just know that you're loved and we're so grateful that you're here. Thank you.